Hello guys, I'm simply sharing my experience on how I came up with the solution to this challenge. As you can see that every element is perfectly positioned to achieve the perfect display of the original image. If I click on difference to show the difference between the solution and the original image, there is literally no difference completely, as you can see. If there was a difference somewhere, somehow you can see the eye, the left hand eye is not there. You'll see that there is a difference denoted by this white background. And just in case we got rid of the ribbon rather, you'll be able to see the difference. So you can see literally that there is no difference between the solution and the original image. So to start with, let's first break down the image so that we can understand or get to know the right course of action in approaching this problem. First of all, ideally I looked at the snowman and broke him down into different sections. First of all, the hat section, the head section, the neck, and then the body. So the hat section, I simply see about 3 elements. We have the top of the hat, there is a ribbon in the middle of the top of the hat, and then there is a brim on the base of the hat. So this, we can achieve this by simply using shapes. This is appearing to be a square shape, this is a rectangular shape, and this is a rectangular shape. And then this head is also made of 3 elements or components. We have a big circle and then 2 small circles. Then the 2 small circles are identical. The difference is just their position. And then on the neck, we simply have a scarf around the neck. And to achieve the scarf, this effect here, you see the scarf is on top of the background, and the background behind this scarf is the same color as this. So literally we also need to achieve this using 2 shapes. One shape, which is the background of the scarf, it should be bigger, and it should have the color of the entire background of the snowman, so that it appears as though it is transparent. And then the other shape is this yellow shape with a yellow background, which is also a rectangular shape, and we can just achieve these edges using the border radius. And then the last segment is the body. This body is also simply a shape of a circle. So by knowing the understanding this layout, you'll be able to build each component one by one until we achieve this shape. So let's look at the structure of the HTML code. We have this div here, which is the main, which holds the entire image. It runs all the way up to here. So this is simply the structure of our image. So inside this main, I had to create the shape of the hat. That means I had to create the hat, the div for the hat, entire hat, including its all of its components. And then inside this div with the class hat, I created 3 more divs broken down into 3 different classes: the class of hat top, class of the hat ribbon, and then class of the hat brim. so that we shall be able to position and style all these elements to achieve this shape of the heart. And then the other section is the head section, where I had a div with class head holding two more divs inside with the classes I left and I right. So this L is to stand for left, and then this R is to stand for right. So the reason as to why I created these classes which have two values in the attribute is simply because I want this left eye and the right eye to be styled in the same way. That means the size, the color, and so on should be the same. But then I added another value within the same attribute to differentiate between the left eye and the right eye, so that I take care of the positioning of each eye independently, where one should be positioned to the left and the other should be positioned to the right. The other way you can do the same. You can give the same class or the same ID and then different classes, or the same class and different IDs. But this kind of declaration of these values makes the code shorter. And then just below the head we have the neck. Now we used the same principle that we used up to develop the section of the neck, whereby we have the main div to hold the entire neck. This helps in achieving the positioning especially. So inside the div of the neck we have the neck ribbon, which is basically this yellow part, and then the neck background, so that we create the effect of transparency, which is literally done by simply making the color of that background the same as the color of the background of the entire image. So, and then lastly we have the body, this area, which simply is the circle. So I gave it just the class body so that we can easily point to it. So when I started styling the image, I realized that I actually met challenges in achieving the desired output, and not until I decided first to declare. You realize here we don't have any div for body, but I think the application itself at least knows that it is seated. All these components are seated on the body div, or on the body section of the HTML code. So I had to call body, and then I define these attributes: the margin, the background of the body, the display, and so on. Literally, when I started styling this background as a div and so on, I saw it not covering the entire space. I could see there was a predefined margin which existed on top and on the left. I could achieve covering to the right and down, but on the left and top it couldn't be covered, not until I defined the body attributes in SCSS, and I said margin 0, background, I gave the background this, display, I called it flex, justify content center, so that every element comes to the center, and then alignment to center, so that it goes off from the left margin to the center. And then I defined the height 100 VH. That's when I achieved now the entire layout. Otherwise, before I defined these body attributes, I found it so challenging to manipulate positioning. Let's go into main. So when we look at our code here, we are able to see that the main div that is holding the entire image is given class main. So that's what we styled from here. First attribute that we talked about is the position, which we gave a relative positioning. It should be relative. And then display flex direction column, because we wanted all the items in this flex container to be running from up to down. That's why I gave it column. And then align items center. We wanted everything to be at the center. If we get rid of this, you see things get jumbled. And then the other section is the body. In this case, maybe before we continue, I would like to bring this to light. Initially, I had started styling from top to bottom, whereby I began styling the heart, head, with the hope of finishing with the body. But I met serious challenges. I almost gave up, and I was like, then something came over me and said, why don't I start styling from down going upwards? And trust me, I broke the code. So that's why you see my styling here is beginning from down going upwards. So I began with the body, I went onto the neck, I went after the body, I went to the head, defined the neck, and finished with a heart. So that's just how I managed to go about it. Maybe you could have started with whichever section, but for me I found it easier to do this, although I tried the other top bottom approach, but later on I found it easier for me to begin from bottom to top. So the body, first of all, to achieve this round shape, I simply had to first define the size of the body. I found out that the size could be achieved by width and height, simply because this is derived from a square. The height and the width are the same. So when I put 200 pixels and of width and against 100 pixels of height, I was able to get the perfect size of the image. Otherwise, if you reduced these values to 80 against 80, maybe 80 against 80, you realize that the image becomes smaller. The size of the body becomes small. So you see the difference. The difference is seriously big. So I kept on playing with these figures, increasing out until I realized that the actual size that they used was 100 pixels. And then the background, definitely we gave it this background, which is this. So to reduce on the number of characters, you realize that in hex, if I have 006 of them, the most significant figure and the least significant figure are the same. So there is no need for the least significant figure. So we get rid of this 0, get rid of this 0, and we get rid of this 0. We still get the same code. So we maintain only the most significant figures on the hex code. That is why I had only these 3 Fs as opposed to having 6 Fs, which are literally the same color. So because we are seeing the value of the least significant figure and most significant figure are the same, so we get rid of the other and then we remain with only that. So by way of trying to reduce on the number of characters in the code. And then we looked at the border radius. So without the border radius, honestly, um, if you have border radius 0, so this is the perfect square that we are talking about. So to achieve this shape, we had to give the border radius 50%. What about if we say 50 pixels? We achieve the same result. We will be able to achieve the same results because we are simply saying move 50 pixels from the corner to the left, move 50 pixels from this corner to right, down, and then the other sides the same thing. So this 50 pixels is literally half of the actual pixels of the width. So we're going to maintain the percentage. So that is how we achieved the circle. So even this other circle, we shall have the radius as 50% of the entire width and height. That's how we'll be able to achieve this circle as well. So then position relative top 5. So this top here, if we say top 0, let me see. Well, I think I defined this before achieving. So you can see there is a difference between the original object and solution. It's not perfectly aligned. So when we add in the top attribute, we shall be able to adjust how far this object should move from top to bottom. So if we say negative, let's say -2, we are even making it worse because it's going further up. But we can say maybe 1. If we say 1, you can see it is coming downwards. If we add 2, it's coming downwards. If you put 3, it is coming further close to what we want. Just trial and error. And when I added 5, I realized that it has perfectly aligned with the original image. So when I turn the difference off, I'll be able to see or position my body to the exact position that was supposed to be. So after that, I go on to style now the head. Now the head is simply this one here. Let's first ignore the ribbon. Let me get comment out the neck. If I comment out the neck, so we are now talking about the ribbon, I mean the head. So the head without the radius is simply a rectangle on top of a triangle. So to achieve the effect of the circle, we had to add the radius of 50%, or literally, in this case we can say 30 pixels. We can say 30 pixels, 30 px. We can still achieve the same radius, because we are simply dividing the width and the height. We are simply dividing it by a half. That's when it comes with 30. So you can see how you can use either pixel or percentages here. So in this case, we are going to get back to 50%, and then the margin top, we're simply trying to push it from up. If we remove the margin, let me see, margin top, great. So you can see if we remove the margin here, you'll see the difference. There's a difference between the original image and the solution. So if I add margin 10, you see it is coming downwards, but it's not perfectly aligned. If I add it to 15, 18. It is getting to the point, but not yet. If I add 18, not yet. Add 19, almost. And then if I add 20, you see that it is now there. That is the perfect margin. So that's how I came up with this. So I kept on playing around with the figures here to determine the perfect alignment uh, of the shapes. So now what I had to do next is to just place this ribbon in the perfect place. That's where now the neck comes in. So let me remove the comment here, bring back our neck. So I placed that neck, and this is where we had something to learn about Z index. So the neck, we gave it class neck, and in this case I gave it position absolute, top 73. So remember what we were doing with top for the rest of the previous components. So I kept on adjusting this, so not until it came 73 pixels from the top of the image itself, so to our position itself there. If I place it to 70, let's say 70, you realize that it is somehow above the original image. If I see, you see the difference is there. So after seeing this, I realized that it has to come down, so I had to increase the value. So I kept on increasing by 1 or 2 until I saw that the perfect position is 73, and I was able to achieve the proper alignment. So first of all, that was for the position of this display flex and column and the rest of the attributes. But now there is one thing that I want us to look at here. Just of course the neck ribbon, this one here, to achieve its size I had to play around with its width and the height, and then the border radius to achieve the perfect dimensions of this. You could not tell simply by looking, but you have to play around with figures, increase, reduce, and so on until you get the perfect size, the perfect size of the amount you need. So I discovered that the radius is supposed to be 5%. If you put anything other than that, you'll see a difference when you click. Let me see, border radius. There's a difference here, but negligible. If you put 10, even that is negligible. If it is 0, if you put it to 0, you can see that there is some gap there. If I put it to 3, you can see that there is some gap. You can see there. Let's take it up by 3, make it 8. There could be some gap, but then I simply used 10. Why did I use, I used 5. Why did I use 5? The reason as to why I chose 5, as if I put 6, 7, 8, let's say 9, 9 is also not showing the difference. But the reason as to why I used 5 is because of the height of this ribbon. Remember, from here up to here, the height. So I decided to divide the height by 2 so that I get a semicircle at the end. That's why I used 5px. So I just divided the height of the ribbon, because I realized that this ribbon from here up to here is 5 pixels by trial and error. So I wouldn't see a reason as to why I would use here 6, 7, or 8. So I just had to use common sense that the perfect circular edge to make a semicircle from the edge of this is 5 pixels. And then the position, now in this case I had to set the position relative, and then top 10 pixels, That's when it was properly aligned with the original object. And then let's first ignore this. And then we go to the neck background. This is now what makes this ribbon appear as though it's having transparent spaces around it. So this simply I don't mind about the width. The width can be as much as you put, as long as it is far beyond these edges of the circle, wherever it is positioned. So here I can put even 100 pixel also, but what I minded so much is about the height. The height simply from here to here, so that it gives a perfect match. Let me uncheck here, so that it gives a perfect match. If I put anything beyond 18 pixels, there will be a difference. Excuse me. If I put here anything below 18 pixels, there will also be a difference. Say, so for example, if I put 17, you can see there is some difference. If I put 19, there's a difference now again. But if I place 18, there is no difference. So that's why I cared so much about this, because it's just the height, how far it extends away from the scarf. And then the width, of course, if I put anything like 40, it will affect the view, because the extension will be inside these other two circles. So I had to put something reasonable. If I put 70, yes, 70 is perfect, which has no problem. So anything beyond that is also okay, because it simply extends its length away from this, and yet its color is the same as the background color, so it will still maintain the transparent effect here. The background is position, relative, top. This simply defined. If I remove this negative here, you can see that it suspends itself to the bottom. But if I add this negative, it means I'm trying to take it some steps back up. So that's how it came about. Now let's talk about the Z index between this and this. So you can see that this this ribbon and the background are perfectly aligned or stuck actually stuck to the center. Let me say one is on top of the other based on the positioning that we defined here, the top and a top here and the top here. We found that this one will come directly on top of this, but without defining the Z index, we will not be able to achieve the desired output. Like, say for example, you see, if I remove the Z index from the ribbon, since the ribbon in the layout here it comes before the background, that means the background will come and cover the ribbon. Let's say for example, let's say, where is the neck? Yeah. So to achieve that, we define the attribute Z index, and now we play with the values in the Z index. If I gave this 1 and then gave this 2, so you can see that it's still not visible, simply because the higher the value of this Z index, let's say for example, if the value of the Z index is more from one element to the other, the element with the higher Z index is the one that comes on top of the other, assuming they are placed in the same position. So in this case, the ribbon has less value, that means it will go behind, and then the background which has higher value comes on top. But if we alter this value and we say this is 0, let's say for example, uh, you can see that this one has come on top, but let me see, if you're familiar with the Illustrator, there is an element of align, is it, there is this tool of shape builder tool. In the shape builder tool you'll be able to see that how can I best explain this? Yes, this background, remember this border here, for example, let me see the border, this border here, which is also extending to this, has a z index 0, but it is on top. It comes before the neck background. So the z index, much as we have not defined for the body, it is by default 0. And now we also say this one is also 0. So it compares this and the other, but this one comes before, because CSS is executed from top to bottom. So this one will come on top of this background, because they all have the same z index, but the other one comes before the other. So we need to define a z index which is higher than this for this background, so that it can come on top of this as well around this area. So if we give this one 1, so you can see the background, this one has come on top of this. And now for us to achieve this one also to come extremely on top of the background, we should be able to give this one now a higher index. In this case it can be anything beyond 1, which if we give 2, now this ribbon or the scarf will now come on top of the other. So you can see by default the z index, if you have not defined the attributes, the z index is always 0. So much as you define and give it 0, it will be the same as that element without definition of a z index. And by so doing, the one you have defined with 0, if it is below the one which you have not defined, the one which you have not defined will still take precedence to come on top, because it was declared first. So that is the hierarchy in this. So if you give any figure beyond 1, it will still achieve us the same results, because the rule always is the attribute with the higher value of the z index will always come on top. So having understood that, let's go to the heart. Are we going to the heart? No, I think we are first going back to the head. Yes, so after the body we went to the head. We didn't complete the head and we went to the ribbon. So on the head we simply looked at the shape, the circular shape, which is white. We didn't look at the eye. So remember, in our CSS, in our HTML here, we declared the attributes of the class and its values. But there is a difference between this. The first class is I, which is common, and then there's another value inside the value holder of the class attribute, which is L and right. So let's explore that. This is the general definition of the appearance of the class I. We define the width to be 10%, the 10 pixels, the height to be 10 pixels, so that we come up with a square. And then we say 50% border radius, so that we get the circle out of this square. So those are the circles that we have. So every div which had the class attribute I was supposed to be styled with that, because it even gives this color. And then the position should be absolute, and it should be suspended 18 pixels from top. That is the exact level it will come from the top of the element, of the main element it's referring to. Look at this position. So it should be absolutely 18 pixels from the top. Absolutely 18 pixels from the top. Now, if we remove this, you see that this object of the eye circle is positioned to the left, suspended to the left. So the reason as to why we added the other values L and R is to define the position of each of those circles. And this is what we did, that L should be L should be 15 pixels away from the left. You understand? And then R should be 15 pixels away from the right. So if we say 0 pixels here, if we say 0 pixel, you can see this second eye moves to the right completely. If we say this one is 0 pixels, you'll realize that this one is suspended to the left 0 pixels. So you keep on adding the values until you see that that is the right position where it's supposed to be. So if we say 10 pixels from the left and 10 pixels from the right, there is a difference in this. If you click this, you'll see that they are not perfectly placed. So I kept on increasing the values until I achieved the perfect position, which is 15 pixels both from the left and the right. And if you see the difference, there is no difference completely. So you realize that you'll have achieved the position that is required. We talked about the neck and its ribbon and the background. Now we go to the hat. So this is the last element now. On the hat, we gave the hat the main div with the class hat, and then we have a div inside which is called the hat top, a div inside which is hat ribbon, and then another div which is hat brim, which is this one here. So first we are going to define the attribute for the hat top, and then we shall define the attributes and positions of the hat ribbon and then the hat brim. All in all, they are all placed inside one div, which is the hat div. So first of all, we have to define how we need the hat div itself to be positioned. So we absolutely positioned it and suspended it -5 pixels from top. If we removed this minus, you can see that it is trying to get the absolute position based on the rest of the elements at the center. But now we need to push it up, because if we maintained it there, you will see that there is a difference between our object and the original object. So we had to push it up by applying a negative towards it. So if you change these values, it keeps on going up or down, not until we achieved the right position within -5. So display flex direction column, because we want all the elements which are inside this div to adopt a flex positioning or flex display, and they should be from up down. That's why we are giving flex direction column. And then the items should be aligned to the center. We don't need items to be aligned to the left or right. We need them directly to the center. Now here as well, we are going to first ignore this because this one now will determine. Remember, we said if we do not declare the z index, by default the z index is 0. So if we remove this z index and say it 0, or remove it completely, because it will now go behind the head, because the head uh, was declared before this. The styling for the head was done before the styling of the heart comes in. Remember, we said again that the execution of this code, or the rendering, it depends on the position where you have put the CSS. If it is from top to actually it's done from top to bottom. The CSS that you define at first is what is rendered before it renders the other. So in this case, the head was rendered first, and now the heart goes behind. So to achieve the heart's position to come to the front, we simply give it a higher z index. If the heart was next to this, simply we know that last time we gave this one z index 2. Then for the heart to come on top of this, then we need to give it z index higher than 2, which is 3 and above. So in this case, this for the head is 0, so 1 can achieve our desired view or display. So that is for the entire heart. Now, what differentiates between the top of the heart and the ribbon within the heart top? So let's look at the heart top. The heart top, first of all, we achieved the exact size by giving a width and height of 40 pixels, and the background, this color that was given, this is not purely black, so we are maintaining this color that was given, and then that is it. We don't need the border radius here because we don't need to make it circular. So after defining the attributes for the heart top, we now had to define the attributes for the ribbon. Now this ribbon, we need to maintain the width. The width should be the same as the width of the heart, so that it runs from left to right perfectly. But then the difference will now come on the height. The height also, I kept on playing with the figures until I realized that the actual height is supposed to be 10 pixels, and the background color is white. Position relative. Now the issue comes here, top. In this case, we needed to suspend it somewhere in the middle of the heart, so I had to give it a positioning of -12 pixels from top. So we're simply trying to say that let it be positioned -25 pixels from top. If we put plus, it comes somewhere down here. You can see it comes down, and it's now just around here. So to take it back up, we had to apply -25. If I say plus, rather, it has come down here as opposed to going up. So I had to play with the values there until I achieved the desired results. So what is the key is defining the width, it is height, and then the positioning from either top or left. Heart brim. This is simply the base of the heart, this one here. The heart brim, you had to define its width and its height, which was perfectly 60 pixels wide and then 5 pixels in height. We gave it the background color, which is that one, position relatives, and also defining its position from the top. In this case, this one was -10. So you keep on playing with the figures until you see this is the right. If it is 0, you see how it is suspended away from the heart itself. So I had to play around with the figures here until I discovered that the height is supposed to be negative 10 pixels, and by that you find that we have achieved the entire view of the original object. I think this best explains how I came up with this. So first thing first, if I am to recap, I had to understand the layout, break the layout into different parts, understand every part, and then come up with a plan on how to achieve the view of every part. For example, this area of the scarf, where the scarf is in between a space that is appearing to be transparent. Then logically, you just had to place here some shape which is the same color as this, and then place the scarf on top of it. The eyes, we had to place them inside the circle, give them a different color, and then play around with its positioning from top and then right and left, give it the right position. Then we had to look at the heart, is also unique, where we have two components on the top of the heart, and this is a ribbon around the heart, and then the heart you play around with the positioning from top to left and bottom, and then the element of Z index. I think with that I'm happy that I learned something. I did not know everything about Z index and so on. I had to, since we were guided from the class yesterday on the key areas that we're supposed to research on and so on, I had to check around internet and learn how Z index works and so on, and I am happy I was able to solve the challenge, and at the same time I learned how to use some of these tools. Especially, for example, there are some tools that cannot work before you declare certain attributes there. So like for the case of the attribute top, if you remove the attribute position, you realize that this top attribute is unusable. So for you to suspend any object from the top or left, right or bottom, you need to first define the nature of positioning. Either the positioning is relative or the positioning is absolute. That's when you'll be able to use this attribute top. So I learned that from this specific challenge. Thank you so much. Nice coding.